Disclaimer: I do not own any of the footage or imagery used in this video. All rights are reserved to the original owners. Spoilers ahead.
What's up?
Godzilla x Kong finally dropped, and to be honest, it was not that bad of a movie. And today we're actually going to talk about it. So anyways, let's get into it. By the way, thank you guys for getting me to 1,000 subscribers. The Q&A video is not going to be this one, but it will be the next one. So stay tuned for that. Right off the bat with this movie, you can tell it is a goofy movie. It's more of a fun movie, and it's really noticeable that they're taking inspiration from the Showa era. However, while it is a goofy movie, I will say that it does have its serious moments at times. Now, I don't know if these critics were always beaten as children or were just not happy with their lives, but these people just hate the word fun. It's like the plague to them. If you guys look at the reviews on this movie, it's always like, ooh, the monsters, they're too light, they don't have any weight to them. And it doesn't necessarily feel like a monster movie, it just feels like a joke. Like, bro, shut the It's like these critics don't understand how Godzilla movies can just be fun at times. Like, they don't have to be all serious and depressing at times. It's a movie that's supposed to be fun and goofy, kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy and Deadpool. It's not supposed to be taken that seriously. Now, I expected a lot of this movie, and it did get my expectations, but there were some parts from this movie that just legitimately caught me off guard. For example, Kong grabbing Zuko's leg and just swinging him around like a sandbag and hitting the other great apes with them. Then at the end, he just throws him at him. He just does not care. The immediate thought that I had was having this meme in my head. Immediately when I saw that scene, that's what I thought of. Now, while this movie was insanely goofy, it did have some serious topics. For example, family, with Kong representing fatherhood and Dr. Andrews representing motherhood. I know I messed up my words, but I'm gonna leave it in because it's funny. By the way, I never thought I would say this, but Kong actually earned my respect in this movie. I still like Godzilla more, but hey, it is what it is. I really like how throughout the movie they're trying to really show how Kong actually earns the name of King Kong. And I actually think this is a good idea. Speaking of Kong, we're gonna talk about him first. You know, save the best for last. I had to, I'm sorry. Anyways, on to Kong. The main thing I want to talk about is Kong and Zuko, because after their first interaction, which was not that great, Kong and Zuko tend to have a bit of trust for each other, and then also have a fatherly and son bond with each other towards the end of the movie. Even in the novelization of Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire, it even says that even in his most dangerous moments, wasn't even thinking about himself. Hell, he wasn't even thinking about Gia. Surprisingly, he was thinking about Zuko and hoping he was okay. Even at the end of the movie, Kong holds up Zuko's arms for him to be noticed in the victory roar. Kind of like how a father lifts up a kid's arm or puts a kid on his shoulders after a victory at a baseball game or something, or a sports game. I also love how they show more emotions towards these titans, and they also show like Kong being upset, they also show laughter from Skarking, and to be honest, I don't mind this. I really don't. It makes me feel like I'm watching a movie similar to Planet of the Apes or something. I also like how Kong is trying to reason with Godzilla, telling him to go to the portal and that he doesn't want to fight, but Godzilla's just not taking any of it. Now, I'm not going to be talking about that Egypt fight in this video. I'm going to let you guys duke it out in the comments below and have a little bit of a war. I mean, hey, I made this video. It's the least you guys can do is start a war in the comments so I can just sit back and watch. Now we're gonna move on to Godzilla. And to be honest, this has to be one of the most controversial Godzilla movies I've ever seen. And to be honest, it's all because of this. And honestly, I don't mind this. I mean, you can have your own little thought on this, but what honestly makes me mad is some people don't like how agile Godzilla is. Because it seems like apparently that he has no weight to him. That's what they say. Now, well, here's the thing that I don't understand. These are the same Godzilla fans that will not talk about how Godzilla played soccer in Final Wars. Or when Godzilla jumped like 8 stories high right on top of Megaguirus. I don't understand how you guys can say this stuff about MonsterVerse Godzilla, but then not say this other stuff about Toho Godzilla. I don't understand. Now, I forgot to mention this in the other video that I made on the MonsterVerse, but to be honest, the past few movies of the MonsterVerse have just been Kong movies with Godzilla cameos. Now, while I don't necessarily like that, I do have to say that they did make up for it in The New Empire. Mainly because, unlike Godzilla vs. Kong, they made Godzilla actually do cool stuff. For example, In Godzilla vs. Kong, all we saw Godzilla doing was swimming and walking around. That's all we really saw him do. In Godzilla x Kong, we actually saw him kicking ass. Now first we're going to talk about Godzilla's battle with Scylla. And while these two fought before, there is a lot of stuff that I noticed in this short battle. In the comics, we can see that Godzilla does struggle a tiny bit with Scylla in the battle. So how did he not struggle in the movie? Well, I think he learned from his mistakes. For example, Scylla got on top of Godzilla in the comics, but in the movie, Godzilla gets on top of Scylla, pinning her down and then literally firing a beam straight into her face. She literally blows up after this too. You can also see Scylla trying to overpower Godzilla and get on top of him, but Godzilla jumps into her, then leading to this event. Our boy Godzilla really did learn from his past mistakes. The same can also be said for Tiamat. In the comics, she manages to blind Godzilla. Her fins are also incredibly sharp and even cut through Godzilla's hide. Then when she bites out on Godzilla's throat, he gets pissed off, picks her up by the throat, and then throws her into a cave where he immediately stomps repeatedly on her head. Even in the movie, she tries to do the same thing but ends up getting blasted with the atomic breath, something Godzilla did not do in the comics, and that immediately splits her into many different pieces, killing her instantly. Godzilla just was a badass in this movie, dude, I swear. Good job, bro. Anyways, there's also one last thing I want to mention about this. I'm really glad that they brought back the spiral heat ray at the end of the movie. I don't know if you guys noticed, but when Godzilla turns all supercharged and he fires the beam straight into the sky, blue energy swirls actually wrap around the beam. Now I don't know if you guys know this, but back in the Heisei era, Godzilla had a similar type of beam, to where this time it was white swirls wrapping around a red beam, where now it's blue swirls wrapping around a pink beam. I looked way too into this movie, didn't I? Now to be honest, the human scenes in this movie weren't that bad. At least to me they're not. They do show some really beautiful scenes between Gia and, Dr. Andrews, but it also talks about the lore and the Great Titan War. If you don't know what the Great Titan War is, it was a war between the Godzilla species and the Kong species, which led both sides to almost extinction. But there's one thing that really gave me more questions than answers, and that is why was there only Godzilla? I mean, there was only one Godzilla in the cave carvings. Now, someone did also talk about this on YouTube, and what they came up with was that there were two Titan Wars. One with the Godzilla species, and one with just our Godzilla. Now, to be honest, that is a pretty accurate statement. Overall, I give this movie a 9.5 out of 10. It is a really good movie, and I do suggest you guys go watch it. Don't listen to the critics. There is also one last thing I do want to talk about, though. We're getting introduced to a lot more things revolving crystals, and there was a mentioning of the Godzilla that ate a star. Now, with this being said, this could be a possible build-up to one of the most loved characters in the Godzilla franchise, that character being Space Godzilla.